the third day within the octave of the Immaculate Conception. The lesson is taken from the dogmatic bull of Pope Pius IX. Both in her offices and in the most holy liturgy the Church hath been accustomed to apply to the creation of Mary the language in which the Holy Scriptures set forth the eternal generation of the uncreated wisdom, and that, because Mary was predestined in the decree of the incarnation of the same wisdom. This practice hath been received by the faithful in all quarters, and plainly showeth what hath been the mind of the Church of Rome, which is the mother and mistress of all churches, on the subject of the sinless conception of the Virgin. Nevertheless, it is fitting to set forth in greater detail the celebrated acts of this Church, on account of that preeminent rank and power which all other churches are bound to yield her, because she is the center of Catholic truth and unity, wherein alone doctrine is always preserved pure, and from whom all the other churches must needs receive the tradition of the faith. Thus it hath always been one of the most striking features of the Roman Church that she hath most powerfully asserted, guarded, promoted, and vindicated the doctrine that the Virgin was conceived without sin. It hath been the boast of our predecessors that by their authority they instituted in the Roman Church the feast of the Conception of Mary, and caused it to be observed with an office and a mass wherein her privilege of immunity from original sin was openly asserted. Our said predecessors have done everything in their power to increase the love of the faithful for this doctrine, by granting indulgences in its honor, by giving permission to cities, provinces, and kingdoms to choose for their patroness the Mother of God, under her title Conceived Without Sin, by approving of guilds, congregations, and associations of persons under vows, all instituted in honor of the sinless conception, by praising the piety of those who have founded convents, hospitals, altars and churches named from this belief, and lastly, by encouraging those who have taken an oath to defend this opinion to the utmost of their power. Moreover, our said predecessors with great joy ordained that the feast of the said conception should be observed as of the same rank as that of the Nativity of the Blessed Virgin, and appointed that it should be kept with an octave throughout the whole Church. They added this feast to those which are commanded to be kept with solemnity, and ordered that the ceremony called a papal chapel should take place every year on this feast in our patriarchal Basilica of Our Lady of the Snows. And above all did they rejoice in the hope of strengthening this belief in the minds of the faithful, and stirring them up to love and venerate the Virgin, conceived without sin, when they granted permission to add to the litany of Loreto the invocation, Queen conceived without original sin, and to insert the word stainless into the preface of the Mass on this feast, that so the law of prayer might become the law of belief. Amen.